Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining the session about Fusion. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done so far this year and what we're hoping to do in coming releases. A little bit about me. My name is Cassandra Targett. I'm VP of Engineering. I joined Lucidworks in 2009, and I've had a number of different roles, most recently taking on leading the Fusion engineering team in February this past year. I'm also an Apache Solar and Lucene committer and member of the PMC. So let's talk about some recent developments. We've done several releases this year, taking the last calendar year, in 5.4x line, 5.5x line, 5.6x line. You'll note the most recent release in September was for managed Fusion only. And I'll talk a little bit later on about kind of what that means and what that means if you're not a managed Fusion customer. But if we take a look at the highlights of all these releases, kind of grouping them together in various areas, one key area that we wanted to focus on was in operations. We've made sure to try to keep our Kubernetes versions up to date, and so each release generally has a Kubernetes update as part of it to go along with the latest Kubernetes releases. In 5.5.0, which was in March, we added Rancher support. And then in 5.6.0 in August, we replaced Apache Pulsar with Apache Kafka. And I'll talk about that a little bit about that. The big reason why we wanted to do that was to improve reliability. A very common point of a failure point or complication point was Apache Pulsar and the volume of messages that were going through it. We thought actually switching to Kafka might help some of our reliability, but in general, has a broader adoption, larger community, and it would be easier for us to understand best practices and find assistance, in the communities when there are problems. But that meant part of that meant we discontinued a few things that people might have been using. In the spirit of improving reliability, we discontinued access to create your own custom subscription. So obviously there are subscriptions that still exist, and there's an API for it. The sort of general openness that we had with Pulsar we've discontinued, and the reason for that is because we can't anticipate your load. We can't tell you best practices for your load, for random and generic subscriptions. The other thing is there was support for remote connectors via a Pulsar proxy. A lot of customers didn't like this approach because it required opening up ports and ingress and egress through firewalls. So we wanted to find a better way to do this. So we took out the support from Pulsar in 5.6.0, but we will be adding it back in the December release. And then finally, we also used Pulsar for managing all of the log files for the entire system, which it also introduced quite a bit of load on the system. And then they would be indexed into a Solar collection, which at times would grow and grow and grow, causing another point of instability if it wasn't sized properly. And while there were jobs to cut that down, they were not always run or run frequently enough. So we actually removed that functionality where the messaging queue is managing all the log files. And that meant actually there's no more need for the log viewer in the UI. We're going to take another look at this. Our thought originally was that we would, customers were already running Kubernetes applications and they already had logging solutions. And if you don't, or if you didn't, we have some simple instructions on how to enable Promtail, which would send the logs to Prometheus and Grafana, and we need to take a little bit of a second look at that probably. A second major focus in 2022 is security and improving the security posture of Fusion in general. Obviously, it started off with the Log4j hotfix release that we did in December. With the 5.5.0 release, we began a CVE report that is available that is our analysis of CVE scanning of all of our containers. And part of that, and we're using that internally to prioritize our list of CVE the list of CVEs that we resolve, and to try to get as many done as quickly as possible. So the first things we did there is we upgraded Spark to 3.2. It was a long overdue upgrade, and it, into the oldness of the version introduced a lot of CVEs. And additionally, we made Jupyter and Superset optional. You actually have to explicitly and try to install them. We are actually no longer really updating our Helm charts for those either. So, while Jupyter itself can have security concerns, both of them have a lot of CVEs at the current time. We hope to get back to this decision and revisit it, but we have not yet. API and then in 5.6.0 we added a feature to use API keys instead of needing to authenticate whenever you're making an API call. For connectors and document ACLs, we released 2 new connectors, SharePoint optimized and LDAP ACLs, which promised to be more performant than the previous versions. Then we added a new security trimming stage, which uses graph queries to more efficiently find the right ACLs, and trim security, trim results based on what users are entitled to. And we released some new features for predictive merchandiser too, hierarchical facets, page metadata, and hierarchical template triggers, and have all been released. We released, Lucidworks went through a new branding exercise, and we refreshed the UI with new colors, iconography, and logos. In December, we are planning a release, actually, it's coming up pretty soon. We're calling it Emerald. We call it Emerald internally. And it's going to have support for Kubernetes 124, remote connect, a new way of doing remote connectors based on gRPC. And we've added the web connector onto our V2 connector framework, which would allow it to be used as a remote connector. Both of these two, remote connectors and web connector, were released in our 5.6.1 release, which was for Managed Fusion only. Again, I'll talk about that just for a second, but they're both examples of features that have been released to some set of customers that are now going to be available in a general release in December. We're going to have support for storing raw signals in cloud storage. So instead of storing your raw signals in Solr, in an ever-growing Solr collection that's being treated as a data store, which is kind of an anti-pattern for Solr, you can store them, have them Fusion generate them, or collected by Fusion and stored in GCS or S3 to start. And then we'll be able to support some variable pricing at scale. Now, this is going to be very interesting for our B2B customers who may have, set, 1 million products, 70,000 customers with 70,000 price lists, and have a need to update pricing and inventory at scale, at scale, like very quickly. And so we're going to have a performant variable pricing solution in the Emerald release in December as well. So let's talk a little bit about the short-term roadmap, and then let's talk about the future roadmap. So our release schedule for 2023, we're doing quarterly releases. Now, every other release, we're targeting for Managed Fusion only. Now, this gives us the opportunity to target specific features, not just to those customers, but just to our operations, right? And allow us to kind of experiment some with our operations before we release something more general. So every March and September release will be available to Managed Fusion customers only. Every June and December release will be for all, will be for everyone, self-hosted, managed, or hosted by us. The goal is that as many features as possible that are in the Managed Fusion only releases also go into the general releases. There may be cases where we do something specifically for our own operations, right, that we don't make available. Or something that we keep in our operations team for a while before we're ready. Along that vein, the auto-scaling operator, we're actually looking for several ways to improve operations. The auto-scaling operator is something we've developed, was released internally to our internal operations team and as part of the September release. And this is actually designed to scale Solr in response to system load. we're going to continue to develop that, and we're hoping to be able to release it to everyone at some point in the future, but we're not sure when. We want to have a lot of experience and a lot of our customers on managed Fusion customers on it before we're ready to have everybody on it. Where, as I said, we're going to look at the logging again, and we really want to make upgrades easier. We're doing a lot of releases, and we're seeing people not move as fast to them, telling us that the upgrades are too complicated and have too much risk, and we need to make that simpler. We also want to improve some user experience stuff. The predictive merchandiser, we've added features to it, as I mentioned, but we have had so much feedback that the user experience is just not ideal, and maybe anti-ideal. And so we really want to do an overhaul of that. And we've started conversations already with some customers about what the needs that people have there and how we might improve that. And then, we want to improve relevance. So we have semantic relevance, semantic augmentation. We're looking to include vector search. We've been evaluating Solar 9's new vector search capabilities. And we really want to be able to have, we really intend to have a solution for this in 2023. So it's a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a taste of what we've done so far this year, a little bit of a preview of what's coming. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. Have a great conference.